So this is reading time. This is Sharky, comma, who lost a tooth, period. Okay. Same words, but on the next page, this is Sharky, period, who lost a tooth, question mark. So this is Sharky who lost a tooth. This is Sharky who lost a tooth. We don't know who lost the tooth. And all of them are that way. And it shows you the power of, I guess, punctuation is what they're aiming for. It shows me the power of something else I want to tell you about. There's one about the Queen that I quite liked, but I don't know if I can find her. So I'll just do another random one here. Here we go. So one is, look at that huge, comma, hot dog. So it's a huge, comma, hot dog. The other is, look at that huge hot dog, exclamation mark. And so just based strictly on that particular thing, that particular punctuation or structure, it changes the whole meaning of the sentence. And that's what I really want you to understand here, that you literally, when you look at your home and your marriage and your organization and everything going on, what's happening is these are all just pieces, data points, they're just things happening. The baby, spit up, we're out of pencils. That doesn't matter. Just all that stuff. And all these things are happening. Somebody says something, somebody didn't respond. Someone's there, someone's not, all those pieces. And what happens is you sort of punctuate it and turn it into a particular kind of sentence or story. And what you're doing is somewhat trapping yourself in your frustration, because the way you're actually looking at this whole thing is actually dictating that you keep perpetuating that story. So let me give you another example. So have you ever done that thing where you sit and with someone usually, or maybe by yourself, you lay on your back or you just look up and you look at the clouds and you start talking about what it looks like. It looks like a lizard, looks like a lion, looks like a character from Where the Heart Is. I think that's a thing. It looks like a pogo stick. And then now it looks like, and somebody else says, oh, it looks like this to me. And then suddenly it looks like that to you. And what's going on? These clouds actually don't look like anything. They look like clouds. Now, what's going on in your brain is you're pulling up patterns you're familiar with, right? And so patterns that you've learned over your lifetime, and those patterns come up and they match, or you start trying to match them and make them sort of match. It looks like a lion, but it'd be a lion that's wearing a tennis sweater, so you put a couple patterns together so it works. That's really the absolute nature of the game. And so in understanding that particular game, it allows you to transform your world. And here's why. You look at what's going on. And if you can start looking at it and think about a different pattern, a different way, just look at it as these are just elements. These are pieces of the story. These are elements. All these little things are happening. And then you can step back from it and think about another possible pattern or another possible pattern. What it allows you to do is start moving things around and creating something new. So, and people do this all the time. And this is where I think the problem is. So some people can have a very rigid homeschool and say, we're educating our kids, and you are educating our kids, but you may not see the pattern of the kids learning in other contexts than just the academic. I don't know many people do that, but I know it happens. So it's all about the academic stuff or the music or the schedule, and you're just on it constantly. And the kids really don't have much time to play. And so in that pattern, you're thinking what matters is them really learning the stuff, and they can get out and get on their own, and either play is not valuable or they can play when they get older. The other way to go is just the opposite. Some people say, oh, look at my kids and I want them to be happy and I let them play and they can learn by playing, but you don't really do any academics. And so when you look at those pieces, you're seeing, you know, a pogo stick in the clouds, and you keep seeing the pogo stick. And what I'm suggesting to you, and part of why what we do, I think, is valuable, is I get you to look at it a different way. I'm saying, oh, look, it's not a pogo stick. It's the Washington Monument or something like that. And if you understand that nature of the game, then you can start looking at it and say, all right, how could I look at this with fresh eyes, with a different pattern? So like, could we have like a sequence, like a rolling time of play, and then a period of some academics, and then some more play, and then some more academics? I'm just making up something. But the moment you can look at it that way is the moment you can create a new game. And this is what most of us do. We literally get stuck seeing things with some idea in our head that we've made up, largely made up, and interpreted a certain way. And oftentimes it's about the future. This is part of why you're anxious, if you ever are, is you've got something in the future you're predicting, and you have a pattern for it, and you think you know exactly how life's going to go. And as soon as you can stop and come up with a couple of other ways to look at it, it might go this way, it might go that way, it might go this third way. The moment you do that, you're going to start calming down, because you don't know the future. And it's the same with looking anything in your marriage or anything in your home or anything in your life. There's a different way you could look at it, and that can make you really smart. So that's best I can describe the lesson. I'm going to illustrate it, I hope, as we go along. I can tell you this. I'll give you an example. If you'll look for when people insult you or criticize you, there's a compliment in there somewhere. Almost always. You know, if people criticize something you're doing, like, you know, with your kids, especially if they're doing well, but if they criticize it, there's some compliment there. I remember a mom got on to me one time because I just wouldn't let the kids eat that much ice cream. She was giving her kids. I mean, if you know the size of your stomach's the size of your fist, and you look at a child's little fist, and that's a shrunk stomach, that's about the size of it, and you think you're giving them a pint or something, that's a massive. For an adult, it'd be like eating a gallon or something like that. And I just went, no, we had a little discussion. But you know, I can look back on it, and there's a bit of a compliment in it, because she was, you know, she was struggling and looking at why I was strong enough to do that, and what my reasoning was, and wanted to know it. She wanted to learn that. She disagreed off the bat, but in reality, she actually was wanting to understand what I was thinking. She wasn't taking it defensive. There's a compliment there. So that'd be an example. If you can look at things with a viewpoint, there's a compliment in there somewhere. You know, they don't talk to you because maybe they're scared. You're a pretty good debater, or maybe they cared enough, you know, a compliment, they cared enough to tell you something tough that you needed to hear. That's a compliment, that they loved you enough to say something. A lot of people see you in Walmart, just go down the other aisle, don't mention anything at all. So that's there's the game. And I'm not seeing any chat, so I'm going to have to reload that. And Jody's going to get in here in just a moment. And I don't know why that live chat's not working, but we'll see if I can pull this off. So what I want you to do is come sign in, if you would, to Zoom. That would be greatly preferable. And I'm sort of kind of guessing that here she comes. That I'm not seeing the right chat. So let's see if I can pull this off. Mute the side. So I muted it. Oh, cool. So I go to live. Let's see who all is here. What's happening? It says it's live. It says you're on. Let's see if I can turn this on. I was having an echo problem, so I'm trying to straighten that out. Okay. Do I have a chat? somewhere. No one's put anything in the chat. Is that true? So there's the sign on for the Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry. Not paying any attention to you. So we just got back from vacation. We were with 11 grandchildren and 12 adults, all in one building. And you're out of the picture, so let's see if that helps. All in one building. Well, I don't know. Oh, somebody's having computer issues. Good. So something is working. All right. And I did give the Zoom. So if you would come on over to Zoom, because that's the only place I'm going to take questions. Okay. Sorry, I just gave somebody a love. She needed it. Yeah. So vacation. What do you want to say about vacation? With all the family from all over the country in one building with a pool and to the lagoon, they could catch fish, or we walked 2 blocks to the beach. And the oldest child is 6 years old. So we have 11 who are 6 and under. And it's 7 boys and 4 girls.
It was great. I realized on the way home that not a child even scraped their knee. Several adults got hurt in different ways, but not a child got hurt. Nobody fell off the pier into the water.
Nobody drowned.
It was great. Everybody had a lot of fun with their cousins. In fact, it was one of our sons put together a little video montage and sent it all to us. And when his son watched it, he's 4 years old. He started crying because he missed his cousins. So I think that was proof of the success in his eyes, at least.
Yep, indeed. Again, I think y'all can see up there. So I'm only going to take questions on Zoom. Just want you to know that. You don't have to talk. You can post them in the chat. I can look at them for sure there. But I want you to learn to use Zoom with us so we can interact. I don't know how to do that on live. I'll keep it live. It'll be great. So I do see somebody, I can mention this, someone currently reading the Independent Homeschool book, basically highlighted the whole thing so far. That's how I felt, right? It's a book I wanted to read. I couldn't find out there. Yeah. So plug for the Independent Homeschool. I think you will find it helpful. And that's part of what we want to talk about today. Some of the book is about systems, or at least piece of what I want to talk about. I'm very open to talk about many other things. That first question, do I know where the chat is? Here we go, the chat. I got the chat open now in Zoom. So please come to Zoom and post your questions. But we're going to start with this one. It's quite interesting. I sent this question out in the email, and let's see if this works for you. In the email. And in the email, I said, so how do you balance these things, right? So we're wrestling with how to balance stuff like, getting the chat up now, homeschool, your homeschool and your marriage and your family. I just mentioned a few: homeschool, marriage, and parenting. And someone wrote me, it was really a truly great note. And the note itself was striking because she said, you left out organizing the home. And then she described wrote me back. I said, well, how many kids and what's going on? And she's got grandparents there and husband, and we're in sports. She said like 13 kids. I think 8 are at home, ages 2 to 15, and some health issues and all. And this whole chaotic story that, ended with, I'm going to trust God and keep going and all the rest. And it was like, yeah, I'm not worthy. I don't think I could pull that off. But the fact is that what is going on when you have all this stuff and it's chaotic is you have a really good plan to create a chaotic environment. Okay. So if I wanted to create problems, whether it's in your marriage or in your parenting or in your home or organization, if I wanted to create a chaotic situation, I would copy your plan. So I'd get your ingredients and your plan, because it apparently works really well to create that chaos. If you feel that chaos, I don't know anything, but I know for us, when we finally began to figure this out, we set up a game plan where 5 children could sit and do their schoolwork, and mom and dad were not very involved in it, and they sort of helped each other, and then they got it done. And they got it done. They learned to cooperate together, and they all learned. And then they went to college, and they all graduated, and then they all got married, and then they're all having kids, except the youngest couple, and that'll probably happen before long. And all those things came together, and then we go on this vacation. And you know what? Vacation, I didn't see conflict of hardly any kind. I did explain to them, they have different parenting approaches a little bit than us, which is a little frustrating since I wrote that book. But I realized, they're an experiment, and our family, we experimented the way we did it. And now I told all the kids, I said, y'all are doing your experiments. You might want to stop every now and then and ask yourself, how's the experiment going? But it's still their experiment. When I think of it as an experiment, again, back to my point, is that cloud of pogo stick. I look at it in a different way now. And so if it's an experiment, it's what they're doing. It's more empowering for them, more freeing for me, because then it's not about them saying, you're doing it wrong or I'm doing it right. It's, wait, you're all doing your experiments. You might learn from each other. Your experiment might not be working, might be good stuff, but you need to take ownership that it's your experiment, and let everybody and understand everybody's doing their experiment. I think it's a super way to go, because what we saw is they get there and they had all divided up the meals, and they had ordered all the food, and each one had a different night where they'd take a meal, and they had stuff for their own kid, and it just systematically worked and worked and worked. There wasn't conflict about food and who's in the kid. There wasn't conflict about much of anything.
Even our days kind of got to be a routine, beach in the morning, swim in the pool for a little bit, nap for most all of it. It just got to be, yeah. So the kids weren't just like, what's going on? No, it pretty much stayed the same every day. And so they knew, yeah, we're going to eat lunch.
Right.
We're going to take naps.
And there's a question coming up that's perfectly related to this, but yeah, I think that's the exact point. And that's because the kids learn how to do this. So what happens, I'm not naturally don't like schedules and routines. I don't like to be boxed in. I don't like to be told what to do. I have all kinds of issues. So, but Jody and I were talking about this recently, and I had this thought, it's very much organizing your time around some kind of schedule or sequence or pattern is very much like in writing, which, as you know, I've spent some time thinking about. And in writing, in the final analysis, either in your mind or ideally on paper, you work it out, you've got to create some kind of outline, some sense of the chapters, some sense of what's going to be in the chapters. And I used to wrestle with that. I mean, you just make stuff up if you're writing fiction, but if you're writing nonfiction, you can't. You really need a structure, just like writing a play or anything. You've got to put together a framework so you can then go in and write. I'm writing this portion and about this topic and about this thing. And it makes writing so much easier when you have some kind of outline or structure or strategy. Make sense? Well, isn't putting a schedule together just putting an outline together for your day? And that's all it is. And then you're writing with action. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So you're writing with action. And so it's not a constraint thing. It's a way just to organize yourself. And every moment, plan in flexibility and margin or whatever else, but overall, there needs to be some scope and sequence, and you've got one anyway, because at some point, roughly, everybody's asleep around midnight, at least, I think. And everybody's sort of getting up with, you got something in there, it's
meals usually.
Yeah. So I'd say it's true with everything. If you've got homeschooling, you want it to produce a result. And what you want to do is try to figure out a pattern, way to think about it, and then a strategy, a sequence, how to pull it off. what we settled on was we did first thing in the morning, they did an hour of writing. It wasn't quite an hour because they got pretty efficient at it. But the writing, they would write about whatever they want to, and then we'd give them feedback the way we know how, with a a red pen, a green pen. Red means stop, green means go. So we're trying to look for good stuff. Give them feedback on punctuation, things that didn't make sense. They'd go correct it. That's done. Next, we do an hour of math, then an hour of reading. Then I think between those, probably a little exercise or some break, and then another hour of reading, and then an hour of math, if I remember the last pattern we did. And I like to start with reading because it's the hardest thing to do. Everybody thinks math's hard. Ha, nah. If you did the same math every day, it'd be nothing. You know, in writing, you're making hundreds of decisions every paragraph. So it's very rigorous.
You
What's
start with
wrong?
the writing. You said, I think you said to start with the reading.
I'm sorry, start with writing. The rigorous thing would be writing, not math. So if you start there, they're making all these decisions in a rigorous thing. If you conquer that first, you've already had a successful day. And they've learned how to go ahead and wake up and get engaged. We had one that had a challenge with that. And today he's a professional writer. That's all I can say. He's paid to write. So that's that game. And I like to end with math because they know the end's coming, and then there'll be lunch or whatever at the end of the day. And so that deadline helps them push through and knock their math out. Whereas reading, if it's the last thing, you know, you can kind of get a little lazy with your reading, because it's not, you know, you're going to read a number of pages, but you can slip by and bump around and kind of guess at things. So that's what we'd say. And that's why we have that 30 minutes a day program that shows you how to set up systems and all. But you can do this without that. You just want to learn to think about, what is it I have to work with? And then what is it exactly that I could do in a sequence that would result in the thing I want? And as Jody pointed out, there are other things in there. You might want to mention one real quick, but sometimes you just simply, one, have too much to do. The other is you could be dawdling. You know, you can squeeze a lot of stuff into time. It's sort of elastic that way. If you have a limit and a focus, you know, whenever a child sits and spends hours on math, they're not spending hours on math. That's why we say create a limit. They only have that much time. It's got to be reasonable. If they don't get it done, on to the next subject. And we'll pick it up with homework in the afternoon. Or not even do that. If I've got a homework, you got this amount of time to get it done. And then we're going to stop. And then you can go do something, whatever else. And then you're going to come back, do it again. Eventually, a person is self-interested enough that they'll just go ahead and pretty much get it done. If they don't, there's something probably else going on neurochemically or something. So that's a piece. But the other thing is, sometimes you have to drop stuff. We had children, unfortunately, with our size and all, we weren't going to be great athletes unless we fielded a soccer team or something. You know, not in the NBA for sure. But in that context, you know, we looked at it and we told the kids, guys and girl, if y'all are all in sports and you're all in team sports, you all have events, with all of y'all only 2 years apart, basically, we would be at sporting events literally all the time. And we can't do that. So your game for it, we'll come to what we can. But sometimes you're going to have to learn to play on your own. If you turn into a pro athlete, I'm probably not coming to every game. Even if you're Tom Brady, hey, Tommy, I'm probably not going to be at every game. I'll definitely be at the championship. You know, I'm coming to that. Probably the playoffs, opener. I can see that. And then the teams I would like to see you beat, I'm for sure I'll get to them. But every single one would be tricky. You're not wanting to model. We've got to stop our life for the kids. You want to support them and encourage them. But it's not about the kids. It's about modeling doing life, and the kids are getting prepped. And some of the prep is learning to do things, you know, when you don't have people cheering for you. That's a piece of it, at least in my way of thinking. Anything else you want to add to all that?
Well, I mean, just thinking about the sports thing and what you were just saying too, we did not want to have a child-centered home. Now, if we valued something, that's one thing. Why do you do sports or music or what art or whatever, because you have reasons of valuing it, not just because kids begged you to do something. It needs to come from, you've thought through it, you thought through the how much commitment is this going to take from our family. Money is involved a lot of times in sports. I'm not saying don't do them or do them. I'm just saying kind of count the cost ahead, look ahead a little bit and just think, is this what we want for our family? Not
Perfect.
just,
Perfect. All right. So in chat here, I don't know how to make this show up. Quote. Well, thanks for inviting me. You're so welcome. All right. So Zeta says, does that work? No, I'll learn it. She says, keeping everyone in order. I have kids that have a lot of input, and sometimes it's hard to complete a sentence or a thought. How do I keep them engaged without hurting each other's feelings? You correcting something?
Yes, this is from, we've already answered this. This is from August 4th. So I don't know your.
Oh,
wording.
I apologize.
He's got to find.
I didn't pay attention at all.
Older stream.
Oh, great. So I don't have any. Yeah. So we answered that. Go back to August 4th. And you'll just love that answer.
So somehow it saves.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody has signed on to Zoom for some reason. Though we have lots of people. I wonder if something's wrong.
It would be wonderful to
Tell
figure
me
out
if
something's wrong.
something's wrong, or if y'all are just subversive and I just need to give the pitch. We're going to do it on Zoom. We're going to learn Socratically. This is, I promise you, it's going to be far more beneficial, not only to you, but to everyone else when we interact. And so I'm going to teach you and train you and beg you to learn to come and have a conversation. Because when people see that interaction, the conversation, it changes everything.
And the more details we have,
yeah,
which we can get from you live, hopefully the much better our help will be.
Yeah, exactly. So come over to Zoom and ask questions. Now, I will tell you this. I'm going to so briefly show you something. There's our family at the beach. All of them. I can't share it long because we have kids that don't like the young kids to be on the internet. They don't want a history on the internet. So I'll risk that one. But it's amazing, to see. We didn't really plan for that. We just had principles we lived by. And eventually what we got was 11 grandchildren and 12 adults, and they're all making great contributions to the world, the worlds they're in. So any questions you want to talk about there? Jody doesn't know this. I guess I could show everyone this as well. But I found a list I'd compiled some time ago, and I guess I could put it out there, but maybe I just need to go through and knock it out. And it's a list of questions. It's 110 homeschooling questions.
I believe I helped with that.
Yeah. Well, I just
a long time ago.
I just found it, basically. Yeah. So here are all the questions I can fall back on if you don't give us real live questions in the moment. How can I convince my spouse that homeschooling is a good idea? How do I homeschool? How does homeschooling benefit my child? What are the drawbacks to homeschooling? What about special needs? What about learning disabilities? Am I qualified? Let's go down to 93. With writing, is it okay to use a computer? 94. Should my children take dual credit courses to get ahead? You're not going to like my answer. My child does not have any friends. What can I do? How important are field trips? See, and we probably need to add to that. But I think we probably could. We got some backup questions, so I'm not scared about that at all. But if you're on and you've got a question,
and I bet a lot of y'all have just started back homeschooling for the fall.
I just saw somebody sign on, but I don't see them.
Fred found a somewhere on the internet, that, and you sent it to me, this woman that had been a teacher in a private school, a teacher in the public school, and a principal, now is homeschooling her 3 kids. Well, 2 are school age, one's not. And she did this just wonderful, beautiful little short video of why she's just like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted for my kids. School wasn't doing it. And she was even trying to, she said school didn't do it for her. So that's why she went into education in the first place, to try to make it even better. You know, and she just is discovering that, no, homeschooling is the way to go for our family, for just so many benefits that she was realizing. And actually she did a great video, and all was very beautiful. I think if there's somebody in there, a photographer or something.
And obviously, you know, there's a lot of interesting discussion out there. I get people occasionally getting really irritated at me about saying homeschool's good. I actually say it's better on balance. And I say it's better for one main reason, and that is, if you have a problem academically with a child in school, we know what you have to do to fix it. You have to hire something, and that person you hired is called a tutor. Yeah, a tutor. And so a tutor is basically a one-on-one interaction where you're really getting to help target what's going on. And that's what we know. This teacher-student ratio is a big deal. So the less students, the more individualized attention you give, especially in the development stages. So once they know how to read and they're older and develop, you know, there's a lot of just teaching themselves. Just like when you're out in life, you just teach yourself something. You know, if you're inclined to, you can study it. Even then, if you can hire a coach, and a coach would be another word for tutor. And then what we're doing here is kind of like tutoring. That's why we want you to sign on to to Zoom, and ask your questions, because this is a profound way that it works. So I'm not getting any questions.
If y'all are asking questions, we're not seeing them.
Yeah.
And so if there's
well, I'm not getting questions. Well, I'm not getting many people sign on. So they like hiding on YouTube, but that's fine. So let me go through, until you bring up a question. Let me go through another one of these questions. Yeah, so question number 110 says, I'll just see if I can post it here. So I'm going to post it in the chat that you can't see if you're not on Zoom with us. And I'm going to post it on the chat. Now I'm cheating, but I'm asking my own question. So how important is it to teach our kids to be positive, and how do we do it? This is a really important kind of question, because they're kind of extremes on this. You know, you can be so positive that you're like, you know, Pollyanna, and everything's great and everything's wonderful and everything's going to turn out. And as a result, you can really deceive yourself about what really is happening in front of you. People can do that. They have serious diseases, and they try to be so optimistic to cure it. And then the disease progresses so far, it can't be treated. And it's pretty tragic. So like on one extreme, that being positive can turn into a negative because you're dismissive of reality. But on the other hand, if you're pessimistic about life and the world and what's going to happen and what is happening, all of that is going to actually color the way you look at life. And then the actions you're going to take are going to be like defensive and careful and withdrawn, and the whole world's going to be cautious. I mean, that's essentially what I've seen kids like that cling to mom the whole time, don't go out and try things, don't experiment with stuff, don't, they always order vanilla ice cream, I guess. something like that. And when they do that, when kids do that sort of thing, you know, and how they look at it, that it's all, everything's dangerous, that pessimism, right, that is engaged incredibly limits their life and their life experience. So on balance, if you look at it, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's parents creating a new education movement like homeschooling, whether it's coaches or athletes being willing to try something new, a new exercise, new approach, that orientation has got to have more optimism than negativism, pessimism in it. You know, it's kind of like the old thing about the glass is, you know, is it half full? You know, for the optimist, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's half full. For the pessimist, it's half empty. For the narcissist, it's half mine. And for the engineer, they're always asking, why did you make a glass too big for the amount of water? Something like that. And so you really want that kind of optimism to be built in your child, some sense of hope and direction, and I can engage in the future and I can overcome obstacles. And I have this view that if I don't quit, I can get somewhere. So how do you build that in a child?
Wow. I was just listening to what you were saying, and it wasn't what I thought you were going to be saying about it. So I was like, yeah, that's
Good.
really important. So
Well, of the two of us, I tend to be slightly more optimistic.
that is true. That is true. Well, I think it goes along also with the fixed mindset person versus the learner. The hope, hey, there's something I can do about this. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to try something else. It opens you up to, being willing to, well, I'm going to try again. Just because that didn't work doesn't mean it's finished and over and done and I failed. No, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try something new. So how do you encourage that in your kids and in yourselves? And I think you reward experimenting for one. You reward your child for you encourage them and reward them for their tenacity and keeping on trying and endurance on something, versus just giving up.
Right. The trying matters. That would be something you want to model, right? That in this game, trying itself definitely matters. And if you understand that piece, it's helpful. Let's think of some other things. How about the literature you feed them? This is the power of things like a Horatio Algier, is that how it's said, type stories or other good literature where like the person wins, they overcome obstacles.
Endurance.
Yeah, it can be inspiring in that way. For us, a lot of it was, you know, our kids, you know, we did a lot with the Bible, and there are a lot of stories of people who are quite flawed that overcome things and things work out and something great happens. Plus, there's an optimism that comes into your life when you sort of figure out, there's a verse in the Bible that says, if God's for you, who can be against you? And so if you have an understanding of God and you figure out how to, we'll say, get on his good side, then, or get on his side, not getting him on your side, getting on his side, then there's a kind of optimism that pervades that kind of life too. And also when you live enough, you start seeing that things tend to work out. You don't take setbacks so seriously, you know, like presidential elections. Honestly, I've liked some of the presidents and I've not liked others of the presidents. That's me. I can't say I just was thrilled with every one of them. Fair? But what I noticed over time is what happens is, so this side is winning, and then a little later, this side is winning. And then a little later, this side is winning, and a little later, this side is winning. This president, that president, it's kind of an oscillating pattern, very much like our emotions. You know, I feel happy some, and then later I feel bad, and then later I feel good, And then we'll throw in there, I've said, later I feel perplexed, later I feel down, later I feel nervous, later I feel whatever. But it like keeps doing this, and I'm speculating that'll keep happening till I die. But once you understand it, you don't have to pretend, oh, this emotional state's going to last forever. In fact, it won't. Oh, this present won't last forever. Oh, this thing, this law won't last forever. It's not that kind of world. And you can see things turn around. You can look at the world and think, man, it's crazy. And believe me, I'm smelling what you're stepping in, because it's crazy. It's always been crazy. I grew up in the 70s. It was crazy. I'm telling you, there's always crazy stuff and crazy ideas. The thing in the 70s was the big thing. One of the big things was, if we would just lay down all our weapons, kind of detente and whatever they're into, if we would lay down all of our weapons, all the other people would lay down theirs. That's the problem. And all of us have lived long enough, and I guess we've seen enough of it to go, I'm pretty sure we've got people in this world that don't have our best interests at heart. And that's probably not a good plan. And I'm not saying having weapons and not having peace is not a good thing, but I don't think we're at a place that's the mechanism, if you get what I'm saying.
I think another thing about the promoting positive attitudes is what we've been looking into a little bit lately on the reframing of things. Can you?
Well, yeah, it's all I've been talking about today.
Okay.
So when you look at things, it's kind of like looking at the sunny side of the street, or what's positive in this, etc. I've got someone I know who is trying to build a company, and just recently their income went down and they had to find another place to live. So it was a little traumatic on the young family, etc. And I said to him, I said, but this is going to make a great story, right? And instantly is a little better. It would make a great story. You're down, you have to move, you have that story, and then it comes back and you make a contribution and blah, blah, blah. And that's sort of the game. Whenever you look at anything, like I said, when everybody looking at parenting and all the siblings looking at parenting each other, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it right, there's a right way to do it, etc. That's different than saying, hey, everybody's running their own experiment, just like y'all are with your homeschool, your parent, etc. It's your experiment. I would ask, how's that working for you? You might want to tweak the experiment if it's not producing the results you want. But on balance, when you look at it that way, you calm down your judgment and you focus on your thing. So everybody gets to run their experiment. We're all going to hope it works out. We're all going to see there's certain families that the way they experiment with it are not a way we want to associate with and invade our lives, because that's it. And you have to make those decisions too. But being able to look at something and what I would call walk around the statue, so see it from different angles, or climb the high dive to see the overall picture, that's really how it works. And being able to embrace another way to think about it is far more helpful to you, even if you decide to reject it. Just learning to take a contrarian view and just argue the other side. Even if you don't believe it, you're better off having done that. I did that years ago with I was convinced that printing was the way to go, and then got in discussion about it with people, and it became so obvious to me that if your child learns cursive, it's going to be way easier with their tweezer dexterity, not yet way easier to get in on that paper and make those rounded things instead of stop, put it down, stop, put it down. And so I became a fan of cursive transitionally as they could learn to block print or print, however we wanted to say it. But that came by being able to argue both sides of the issue. And I like to do that. In fact, I would say one of the things that really will make your children optimistic but profound is their ability to argue both sides. Because if you have any issue and you know both sides, your decision is going to be clear. Well, we live in a world right now that people aren't getting both sides. They listen to a certain kind of news, and that news has a certain kind of bias. They only feed you certain information, so you don't hear this other side. So I wind up watching, like when I watch news, I'll watch liberal and conservative, watching both because I want to hear both. And once I think it through, I'm pretty good on knowing what I believe and why, because it's not built on what I've heard exactly. I can get tricked, but it's built on me understanding the issue. And when your children learn to think about it, a rainy day, oh, what are we going to do? Well, what's bad about a rainy day? Let's talk about that. Well, we can't go out and play, and we're inside, and it's blah, 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 blah. Let them do the list. And what could be good about a rainy day? We could learn other things. We can make a tent under the dining room, with sheets and all. We can learn to be thankful because the rain, without it, that's not a good thing. After it stops, I was a kid. I loved to go out in my part of the world and build little dams. We'd have little like side creeks and all coming off the mountain in our context, or sometimes just play in the mud or see what come out. So a lot of critters come out. We would always go out and find critters.
Our Houston kids find tadpoles.
Yeah,
after the
I love to
rains.
find tadpoles. And so being able to argue both sides can let you actually formulate and understand the positive. That can be truly beneficial and
I think a lot of things in the
significantly
emotions
pro-tem.
course get you in the right direction for positivity. But I think a lot of it's just encouraging your kids and then when they are being positive, certainly praise them for that and help them when you see them be in a negative mood. Okay, well, it's trying to get them out of that by reframing or other ideas, suggestions. Well, so they come home, oh, they're sad. So and so didn't talk to them today. And they just know that means that person hates them. Well, what else could it mean? What are 3 other things that it could mean that Billy didn't talk to you today?
Yeah.
And that will just immediately get you out of, you can't know that it's because he doesn't like you anymore.
Right. Exactly. There's the story. And so learning to, look at what you're looking at, like I said, clouds, but realizing you could think of it as something different. You can see some other game in play, have another pattern, have another idea. If you want help with that, there's a couple of tricks. One, you can look at it by the way someone else would look at it. Like your chaotic little home with all your little kids and they're crazy and chaotic. How would a couple that can't have kids look at that?
Blessing.
Yeah. How would an organizational genius look at it?
They'd want to get in there and
what they would do, they would look at it, but they would look at like Jody does. Jody goes into a chaotic room of small children at church or somewhere, and there's a table there, and what she'll do is get out like stuff, vegetables, and she makes little playstations on the corners, and she says, okay, here's your spot. You're playing with cooking stuff, and you're playing with this, you're playing with this, you're playing with this, you're playing this. Now it's your time to play with it, and then we're going to rotate or something. She does something like that, and suddenly all these chaotic little children are all in their little work areas doing their Montessori church thing or whatever it is, and it works golden. So that's what you do, and you look for leverage thing. I mean, in organizing your home, the thing I would suggest is honestly figure out the one area that if you could solve it forever would give you back the most energy. Okay. And if that's too big of a leap, take a small one, but you're looking for leverage, like a small thing we could solve that would help a lot. And then pour all your energy into solving that. Like literally, like maybe it's just wake up times. Okay. Why don't you put all your energy, if that matters, or bedtimes, put your energy into how do we get them to go to bed at a sane moment, and not get up anymore. And we got suggestions in this parenting book. If you own our material, you get a free copy of it, and ways that can work. So you put all your energy into it. And if you solve that one thing, then you're going to see you have more room, margin, energy in your life to solve another one. I'd say that about relationships. One of the things we've noticed is the best relationships are marked by a trail of resolved issues. So in marriage, why don't you just solve the romance issue, or solve the finances issue, or solve the who's going to do which chores issue, or solve the, what's another common issue? Communication's a good one, but that apparently takes something beyond a lifetime. But when you solve these issues and don't have a parenting, agreeing about what our approach to parenting is, or about vacation, or about in-laws or whatever, take an issue and stay on it until it goes away, till it's resolved. Don't treat it like the baggage at Southwest, poke on a little bit and wait for another bag to come around. Oh, that's the wrong one. We'll try another one. No, focus and solve it. And you solve these issues one at a time. If you're having trouble in homeschool and all these things, why don't you solve the reading? Like, we just have a reading time. This is the reading time. That's going to be a steady thing in our schedule. And we're going to know you're going to read so many pages in these books and this sequence, and it's going to be great. And you're going to tell us some of the story or whatever you do. But solve the reading problem. Once you solve the reading problem, it's solved. And guess what? You can then add the math problem, and then you can add the writing problem, or however you want to do it. So I think you'll find that profoundly helpful. All right. We've had fun. Again, I'm going to start sending you the sign on to Zoom. I want you to sign on so we can have conversation, interaction, and still want it live on YouTube. But the Socratically, again, the more we can discuss, learn details, don't have to show you a picture. I'd like to use someday. We can build a community. We can get to know each other, and we're going to find the interaction and discovery of solutions is going to be way better.
Be brave. Do it next week. Be brave.
Yeah. So we'll see you then, and hope you have a